Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Helen O'Reilly, Deputy Editor of the French Tech Journal. For a few years now, AI has helped people to do their jobs faster, but things are moving fast. Instead of just helping with isolated tasks, today, a new generation of AI agents are beginning to do whole parts of the job themselves. So what happens when your next coworker isn't human? To discuss that, I'm delighted to be joined by Stanislas Polu, co-founder and CTO of Dust. So Stan, to get the ball rolling, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing at Dust?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me and thank you for that chat. So Dust is basically sits at the product layer and really helps company deploy agents. We really the scene product layer that helps the collaboration between humans and the AI models. These days, these things are called a harness. There are many types of harness, and we really see ourselves as the company harness, that things, that product that really helps that collaboration between human intelligence and artificial intelligence.
Okay, but enterprise AI is becoming an incredibly crowded space. So concretely, what specific problem were you trying to solve when you built it?
Yeah, so I think very different from when we started and where we are right now. When I started working on Dust, I spent some time at OpenAI before. It was pre-ChatGPT. And it was kind of 3 years and 6 months ago. It's kind of mind-blowing to think about how little we knew about what would be doable with that technology, even if we were already building it. But today, the idea of Dust is really to really help for what we call multiplayer AI. And what we mean by multiplayer AI is that as the agents are taking longer and longer time horizon tasks, it will be the case that you will no longer be steering the agent yourself. You'll be much less collaborating with an agent on your own. But rather, if the agent is in charge of a task that is supposed to take multiple weeks or multiple days of human work, those tasks, because they are kind of by essence collaborative within the company and cross-functional, you'll have to steer those agents collaboratively. And so that's what we call multiplayer AI, that capability of having multiple people steering a set of agents to achieve a larger goal that is works on a longer time horizon.
Okay, so can you, to help people in the audience and myself really imagine it, can you give us a concrete example of an agent at work inside a company and what you might be doing?
Yeah, sure. A good example, kind of a toy example of a multiplayer AI that is actually live in many of our users and at Dust as well, is when you think about the weekly team meeting. So the weekly team meeting, you have to prepare the contents. And generally, there's a content about finance, there's a content about users, there's content about sales, etc., etc. And preparing the team weekly used to be kind of a many hours job for somebody. You needed to get the frame of content ready. You needed to ping each of the area leads that were in charge of some parts of that meeting to give kind of their specific take for that week. If you have a deep dive on a subject that week, you would need to ping that person, get the slides, etc. Today at Dust, that task has been fully tackled by an agent. And so what happens is that an agent wakes up, so our team weekly is on Tuesday. An agent wakes up on Monday, knows kind of what's the common contents of each of those slides that's supposed to be every week. Go query Snowflake, go query HubSpot, go query GitHub to prepare the kind of default content that is supposed to be in each of those slides. Then it creates one session, which is each of the person that are supposed to fine-tune that content and say, hey, I've prepared your slide. It has what we generally put in the team weekly every week. What do you want to talk about this week? Do you want to change it a little bit, etc.? Each of those humans collaborate with the agent locally on each of those slides. Then the agents also say, this week we have a deep dive on that part of the product, so I need to ping that person, Daphne, as an example, and pings Daphne and say, hey, you're supposed to do a deep dive at Team Weekly this week, so do you want to walk on the slides with me? And I start walking on the slides there. And by Tuesday noon, the agent looks at all of those sessions and kind of aggregates together the presentation, maybe make a remember to some humans, and finally get the presentation ready and pings the person that is in charge of the Team Weekly to say the presentation is ready. And so the person that is in charge at the top probably checked that everything was going right, but didn't do any work. And in that case, you see, the agent has the goal of preparing the Team Weekly slides, but collaborated and was steered by at least 8 different humans in the process.
Okay, so it sounded a little bit like the boss was being bossed around by a bot. But, so that's what the technology does. But the bigger question is perhaps why we're seeing this now. Because AI has been around for years, yet enterprise adoption seems to have accelerated dramatically over the past 18 months.
Well, I think it's a matter of models' capability that are still evolving really quickly, and there's been multiple events that have triggered a lot of adoption. The latest one was probably the release of Anthropic Opus 4.5 in November. It was kind of a real step change, at least for developers, which kind of spearheaded a large adoption even beyond the developer persona. And so why the adoption was not that great the years before? I mean, 2 years ago, when we were in the market, we would hear about Glean all over the place. And Glean is great at enterprise search, does a great job as Q&A on the company data. And that's what people imagine AI would do, answer questions. And as the kind of agentic capabilities emerged, the ability to execute tools, the kind of a standardization around MCP, the protocol that make that a reality, enable new use cases and made those agents more useful. And so I think we are really in a phase where each step of at each time the technology evolves, the adoption follows. What we're seeing, I mean, there's been a real acceleration because there's an acceleration. You see the acceleration in the revenue on Anthropic or OpenAI, and you might wonder whether it's only developer-related acceleration or adoption. It happens that on Dust, you mostly do non-developer work, kind of all of the rest that you could do in a company. And we've seen a massive inflections in terms of token consumptions per user, which has been fantastic to see. So there's really more work being done by agents all over the place in companies that because the models are getting better. I think it's the core of it.
Okay, so speaking about adoption, and what you just said, are companies buying productivity, transformation, or are they simply buying insurance against being left behind?
Probably a bit of the three. I think we're still in a market where you need to provide a fair amount of transformation. And you can see that in multiple ways. There are many companies that are going to market to very large enterprise with FDEs, and those FDEs will build custom solutions in there. And that's a way to adapt the solution to the specific need and helps with the transformation. When our platform is kind of a very product-led and horizontal, we don't really build custom code on top of it, but we definitely need to kind of kickstart the usage within a company. We definitely need to help them find the use case, educate the champions that we call AI operators. And so adoption today is definitely tied with transformation.
Okay, I'm going to take you onto the theme of sovereignty now, which is a theme that we've heard repeatedly about this week at VivaTech. And while that debate often happens at the level of governments, it ultimately plays out inside companies that are making purchasing decisions every day. So do you think that sovereignty is a real issue? Do you think that it's something that companies are really concerned about when they're making buying decisions, or not really?
I think it's a growing concern, but there's a lot to say on sovereignty. Let's forget about the kind of state sovereignty. We can dive into it if you want, but when you think about the input to a company or the input to an economy, but I think the two works the same way. You have the stuff, you have the energy, and you used to have the human. And the human input was mostly, at least in kind of white-collar companies, was mostly intelligence. And so your intelligence input was your own by default, because it was your human. If you're a company, it's your employees. If you're a state, it's your people. As you have an emergence of artificial intelligence, so part of that intelligence becomes an input to your company or your state. And because it's artificial, it comes from a provider. And so every way in which we've thought about energy as something that has to be sovereign, I think we should think about artificial intelligence in the same way. And so there's a big importance of sovereignty there. We do believe that the first step of sovereignty is local to the enterprise. And for us, that's the fact that they should have the choice of switching between intelligence provider freely. If you use the parallel with energy again, when you buy tokens from OpenAI and you buy Codex at the same time, or when you buy tokens from Anthropic and you buy Cloud Cowork at the same time, it's really as if you were buying your energy somewhere and your machines at the same place, and the plug would only work with the energy provider. And if you wanted to switch to a different energy provider, the plug would not fit. You could be switching. That makes no sense, right? You want to buy your machines, and you want to buy your energy, and you want to put the energy in the machines, and you want to be able to switch providers freely. And so I think here it's really the same. You want your harness to be capable of routing to whatever provider you want, because models change, the external world change, some models get stopped by states, some other models pop up, capabilities are great there, maybe not so great there. And so having that freedom of change is the first step towards sovereignty, at least at the enterprise level. And I think that argument resonates quite well with companies and is part of a value that Dust provides.
Okay, so we've talked about the technology, the market, and the infrastructure, but I think ultimately what people care most about is work, and I think a lot of people are wondering what all of this means for the way they work. So you've described Dust as an orchestra conductor, so conducting and organizing information across teams, effectively replacing the need for one-to-one communication. What impact do you think this is going to have on workplace relationships?
I have no clue. I have no clue, but I guess we can take the developer job as a proxy to that, because it was kind of deeply transformed over the past 6 months, like deeply transformed. We used to code most of the time, use AI a bit to answer questions and write some pieces of code. And comes November 2025, Opus 4.5. Wait 3 months, and there's been a real phase transition, and now we code maybe 20% of the time, and the rest is written by the machine. And for the ones that have tried Fable last week, almost 100%. It felt really, within our team, we're switching pretty freely between OpenAI models and Anthropic models when it comes to code, and the kind of shared feeling was, oh shit, it's November 2025 all over again. And so that's interesting how the work has been completely changed, and we should very quickly not code anymore at all. We'll be supervising, we'll be looking at the code, we'll be coaching the model, but there's very few lines of code we'll be writing. And so what has been going to your question, don't worry, I'm getting there. What has been the consequence on the job of a developer? I think it actually went opposite ways of what you may fear, where you wouldn't talk anymore. I think there's much more collaboration between developers, because we spend so much less time actually writing the code. It displays the work into deciding what to do, which is something that is closer to product and is much more requires more collaboration, more chatting, more working together. So I think there for developers it shifted in that direction, and so we might think that actually for many other jobs, you'll go much more into collaboration between humans. That's going to be the bulk of what you do to decide what to do, and much less into doing the stuff.
Okay, so you think that these agentic bots are going to actually help to strengthen communication in many ways. Okay, but still about jobs. So one area that comes up repeatedly in these conversations is the impact on junior talent. So historically, juniors learn through research, note-taking, internal coordination, and those are the very tasks that agents are starting to perform. So what will the impacts be on them?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting question. If you think of, if you think at the bar of talents that you, basically, when the AI is doing most of the work, the importance is knowing really what to build. It's not anymore knowing how to build, it's knowing what to build. And it requires a form of talent that is hard to have without experience. And so a year ago, you would hire somebody out of school, and they would be dependable and fast. That would be enough to convince you that they would bring a ton of value to the team. And it's true that today, somebody being dependable and fast in coding is almost not anymore. What you want is agency, what you want is ownership, what you want is bending the arc, all of those kind of soft skills that are a bit kind of baked into your person, but also a bit something that you learn with experience. So that's a great question, and something that is quite mind-boggling. So that's for the kind of a risk side. On the brighter side, so at Dust, in France, we have high school internships, as many of you know. These are 1 week or 2 weeks internship for people that are 15 or 16 years old. And since the day one, every year we took 1, 2, or 3 high school interns. And we give them access to all the tools we have, so whether that's Dust and Codex and Cloud Code and you name it. And it's been incredible to see this, the slope of what they're able to do in a week or 2. Like 3 years ago, you take a high school student, doesn't know how to code, you put it in front of the computer, you give it, this is a model, do stuff. They would kind of manage to teach themselves a little bit of coding. Already awesome. You don't give them any instructions, you say, try to learn JavaScript, and they manage to learning on their own, asking questions to the model. That was 3 years ago. 2 years ago, the intern comes in, I give him a paper, don't realize that he doesn't speak English, the paper is in English. He translates the paper entirely and implements the thing entirely and gets to a working implementation autonomously by asking questions to agents. He was still very well aware of the code, and it was easy to see that he had a hard time understanding everything, which was worrying, but also the outcome was very exciting. 1 year ago, the student comes in, and we give him what he want to do. He says, I want to do a game. And I say, go ahead, do a game. And so he does a game for a week. We don't much, we help him a bit. And at the end of the week, he presents the game to the team. And he shows the game, says blah, blah, and there was a guy walking, 3D guys, and we ask him, but how did you create that 3D model? He's like, Claude downloaded something somewhere on the internet. Okay, blah, blah, blah. It was kind of exciting, and we talk, and at the end, we ask him, and can you show us the code? And he says, the what? And so he worked on an artifact, which is a file of code, for a week through an agent, and didn't realize that artifact has an existence.
That's like creating a black box, isn't it?
Yeah, but sometimes he built a freaking game.
Fine.
And so the questions there is, does he understand what he built? Not that much. The question is, will he need in the future to understand that? Maybe not.
I was about to say, please say yes. Because otherwise we're just handing over all the power to the bots. And speaking of that, maybe let's finish by looking ahead. The pace of change has been extraordinary over the past 2 years, and no one really knows where we're going. But I'm going to ask you to make a prediction anyway. 5 years from now, what do you think will seem completely normal at work that still sounds completely crazy today?
5 years is just not possible. I cannot predict that far. Things are going too fast. I think the image that many people use, that is an interesting one, is if you think about our great-great-grandparents, if they look at what we do at work, because of one or two industrial revolutions went through between them and us, they would look at us and say, "You're not working there. You're just sitting on a chair slacking around. That's not work." And so, given the speed at which it goes, assuming there is no kind of backlash or etc., and we can chat about that obviously, in 5 years, it's 100% sure we'll be looking at people working, which will be us, and we'll be, that's not work. What it's going to be, I cannot tell you. But
looks like we're entering a brave new world. So, how optimistic are you? And I guess, like, I'm going back to the job question again, but it is a recurring theme. How optimistic are you that the future is going to be bright with all these AI agents and humanoids and goodness knows what else running around?
Pretty optimistic. I think I think the times are daunting, not frightening. So really, it's daunting, the speed at which it goes. Not necessarily yet frightening. I mean, at the end of the day, we're still pretty much in control. Whether you're a doomer or not, etc., will give you different point of views. I'm personally definitely optimistic that it will go the right way, but at the same time, it's cautiously optimistic. So I think you have to stay very well aware and try to think about that a lot. I mean, the Fable 5 ban by the US, unclear what are the underlying reasons. Is it because Anthropic kind of hyped their model around cyber, and so they're just getting what they ask for, which is the state saying, wow, if they're really that good at cyber, it's probably an arm, or weapon, sorry. Is it because there's something political behind that, or is it because the US actually think that it's some form of intelligence that is just too dangerous for the world? We don't know. But the slightly scary thing is that for the past couple of years, if you look at any blog post, any podcast, any kind of a predicting story about how AI can go wrong, they all start with an event that looks like last week. So that one is a little bit scary, but hopefully we'll go around and we'll find the right way.
Okay, Stan. So we're coming to the end of our time now. And I think I'll probably conclude by saying that it seems the real question is no longer whether our next co-worker is arriving, but how we choose to work alongside them. Stanislas, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Fascinating. Thank you. And thank you.